Tonight, you and I are looking at what seems like our grandest adventure, but it might just be a lethal delusion. We're going to explore the terrifying reality of trying to colonize Mars. Forget the movies or the news. From where I'm sitting, the physical reality of living on that planet is nothing but brutal. Here is what most people don't understand. Colonizing Mars isn't just about building better rockets or growing food. It's about fundamental laws of physics we can't engineer our way around. You and I will see why this backup planet dream is built on nothing. Before we continue, if you love the mysteries of the cosmos like I do, please like the video or subscribe. It is a small gesture, but it helps us find more curious minds. Now, look closer. Let's start with the basics. Mars is the fourth rock from the Sun, 49 million miles further into the dark than Earth. That is roughly 142 million miles from the Sun, far beyond Earth's 93 million mile orbit. It's a freezing red desert world, roughly half the size of Earth, stretching only 4,200 miles across. Its landmass equals all of Earth's continents combined, but from out here, you can see every inch is hostile to life. Nowhere on Earth, not even the deepest ocean, is this lethal. Mars has an atmosphere, but it is a ghost of one. Surface pressure is only 0.6% of Earth's. At sea level, you have 14.7 pounds per square inch. On Mars, the atmosphere exerts barely 0.09 pounds per square inch. That's the same pressure as 100,000 feet above Earth. Out here, we call that the edge of space. The Armstrong limit, where your blood boils at body temperature, is 62,000 feet. Mars sits way above that deadly line. Step outside without a suit, and your internal fluids would vaporize. Not from heat it's freezing, but from the lack of pressure. At this low pressure, water boils at your own body heat. Your blood won't literally boil yet, thanks to your internal pressure. But the moisture on your tongue, eyes, and lungs would bubble away instantly. You would black out in 15 seconds without any oxygen. Your body would swell as gases expand in your tissue. You would be dead within 2 minutes. This isn't a guess. We've seen what happens to unprotected humans in a vacuum through tragic accidents in our space history. The Martian air is 95% carbon dioxide, mixed with nitrogen and a little argon. Oxygen is almost non-existent, just 0.13%. Earth, by contrast, gives you 21% oxygen to live. Trying to breathe on Mars would be like huffing car exhaust in a vacuum. It's a death trap compared to Earth's air. Even if the pressure were higher, the gas would kill you. But the pressure is non-existent anyway. This creates a nightmare for any colony, especially when you look at the wild temperature swings. A summer day at the equator might hit 70 degrees Fahrenheit or 21 Celsius. Sounds pleasant, but that's the peak. That's high noon at the warmest spot imaginable. By night, it drops to negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit or negative 73 Celsius. That's a shift of 170 degrees in one day. The whole planet averages negative 80 degrees Fahrenheit. It's colder than the worst winter in Antarctica. Staying alive requires constant, heavy heating. You'd need massive power just to keep your habitat from freezing until the walls crack. This isn't just a thermostat adjustment. Water freezes at 0 degrees Celsius. Mars is routinely 3 times colder than that. Everything biological would freeze solid without active heat, and that takes an incredible amount of energy, forever. The thin air means there's no insulation. Earth's atmosphere is a warm blanket. Mars has nothing to hold heat. Heat just radiates away into the void instantly. That's why the temperature swings are so violent. When the sun is up, you get a little warmth. The second it sets, the heat vanishes into space. There is no atmospheric blanket to keep you warm. Building habitats that can survive this is possible, but it demands perfect insulation and constant power input. One crack, one power failure, and you freeze or suffocate, or both. Now, let's talk about the radiation. This is the real killer. Earth protects us with a magnetic field and a thick atmosphere. Earth's spinning liquid iron core creates a massive protective bubble around the planet called the magnetosphere. This field deflects the solar wind-charged particles from the sun, keeping them away from the surface. The air itself provides extra shielding, absorbing any radiation that pierces the magnetic field. Between them, you're safe. You get a few cosmic rays, but nothing deadly. Out here on Mars, you have neither of those protections. Mars had a magnetic field once, when its core was still molten, but it's smaller than Earth and cooled faster. The core grew cold and the magnetic shield died. Without it, I know the solar wind slowly tore the atmosphere away over 1 billion years. Now, there is no global field left. I see only tiny, magnetized patches in the south ghosts of an ancient shield that offer us no real protection. You and I have to remember that Mars air is barely 1% of Earth air. Cosmic radiation slams into the red surface without anything to stop it. Out here on the space station, we are protected by Earth field, but we still take in 50 to 2,000 millisieverts of radiation every year. It all depends on how active the sun is. Down on Earth, most of you only get 2 to 3 millisieverts a year from background sources. One chest X-ray is about 0.1 millisieverts. A full CT scan might hit you with 10 units of that radiation. Back home, the limit for workers is 20 millisieverts. Up here, we take 50 to 100 times more radiation than anyone walking the streets below. Down on the surface of Mars, it gets even more alarming. Curiosity showed us that the monthly dose is about 24 millisieverts right on the ground. In quiet solar times, that is nearly 300 millisieverts a year. When the sun wakes up and gets active, those numbers start to climb even higher. When those massive solar flares erupt, we see radiation spikes that are absolutely terrifying. The doses can jump in an instant. Just one major solar storm could blast us with several hundred millisieverts in only a few hours. It is an invisible, deadly tide. Let us put this in perspective. After Chernobyl, they evacuated everyone if the radiation hit 50 millisieverts in that first year. If it went higher, you were forced out. To get acute radiation sickness where you feel the effects in hours, you need to hit 1,000 millisieverts. If a short burst reaches 4,000 to 5,000 millisieverts, I know that you have a 50% chance of being dead within 30 days. Without proper shielding on Mars, we would be absorbing 290 millisieverts every single year, even on quiet days. That is 15 times the limit for Earth workers. It is like living through 6 Chernobyl evacuations every year forever without a break. We know what this level of exposure does to a body. A massive jump in cancer risk is the most obvious danger. Every 100 millisieverts we take adds about 0.5% to our lifetime risk of developing cancer. Living on Mars, that dose would bump my cancer risk up by nearly 1.5% for every year I stayed. After a decade, if we just add those numbers up, I am looking at a 15% increase in my cancer risk. 2 decades in, that is a 30% jump. And remember, most of you already start with a baseline risk of 40% on Earth. So, instead of a 40% chance in my lifetime, 10 years on Mars would push my odds to 55%. 20 years? That becomes 70%. But honestly, cancer might be the least of my worries out here in the void. Radiation shreds the DNA in every cell I have. It clouds our eyes with cataracts, slowly blurring my vision as time passes. It hammers my heart and blood vessels, making heart disease more likely. It even starts to eat away at our nervous systems. When I look at studies of fellow astronauts who spent time in lower doses than Mars, the damage to their brain tissue is frightening. It seems to rot our memories and mess with how we make decisions. It might even speed up brain diseases as we get older. These symptoms only get worse as the dose grows. Even our fertility is at risk, because those reproductive cells are so incredibly fragile. High doses can leave us sterile forever. Even if we could have children, I worry the radiation would mutate the cells we pass on. Those mutations would belong to our children. The risk of birth defects goes up every day we are exposed to this radiation. I know what you are thinking. We can just shield ourselves, build habitats underground, or pile dirt on top of our Martian homes. Sure, that helps. Shielding is possible, but I am telling you, it is not a simple puzzle for us to solve. To feel safe like on Earth, we would need 10 feet of Martian soil regolith piled right on top of our living space. 10 feet of that dirt is incredibly heavy. That Martian regolith is dense, about 1.5 grams per cubic centimeter. Covering a roof means 4,500 kilograms per square meter. That is 9,000 pounds, pressing down on every square meter. For a small, 1,000 square foot home, we would have to pile up 450,000 kilograms of Martian soil. That is 500 tons of dirt sitting right over our heads, and that is just the roof. Our walls would need it too. Shifting 500 tons of dirt is a massive job even on Earth with all the fuel and workers you could ever want. Out here, with barely any tools, no fuel, and just a few of us in bulky suits, The task feels almost impossible. And that is assuming our habitat can even hold the weight. Building something that supports 500 tons is a nightmare for our engineers. It has to hold internal pressure against a vacuum, stay airtight, and keep us warm. It is way beyond anything we build today. Some say we should just go underground, maybe find a cave or a lava tube. That solves shielding, but it brings new problems. Digging on Mars is hard. The soil is packed with perchlorates, toxic chemicals that eat our equipment and could easily kill us. The dust is finer than talcum powder and filled with static. I can tell you, it sticks to absolutely everything we have. Every tool, every suit, and every seal would be choked with this abrasive, toxic dust. It is a constant, suffocating battle for survival. Keeping this stuff out of our living quarters? Almost impossible. During the brief Apollo moon missions, those guys found lunar dust was their worst nightmare. It invaded everything despite our best efforts. It ruined visors, ate through seals, and choked us once it drifted inside. Martian dust is just as bad, but we are stuck here for years, not days, giving it endless time to break us. Unlike the moon, this Martian soil is laced with perchlorates. It is not just sharp, it is chemically toxic. Let's look at these perchlorates together. Calcium perchlorate is everywhere in the soil beneath my boots. Data from the Phoenix lander showed 0.5% concentrations. Sounds small until you realize it is in every handful of dirt. Perchlorates are poison. They mess with our thyroids by stopping our bodies from taking in iodine. Living with this stuff causes hypothyroidism, wrecking our metabolism, energy, and survival. They are explosive oxidizers too. One wrong spark and it is over. Any Martian farm we build starts with contaminated dirt. We cannot just grab a shovel and start planting seeds in this red dirt. I would have to wash every gram of soil to flush the toxins. That takes water, something we do not have. The wash water gets poisoned too, so we have to clean that next. Plus, every time I come inside, my suit is covered in this toxic dust. Scrubbing that dust off before I enter the habitat is vital, but incredibly hard. We need airlocks packed with vacuums, brushes, and jets just to fight off these tiny, clinging electric particles. Even then, some dust sneaks in. We end up breathing it every single second. What does breathing poison for years do to a body? We do not fully know, but it will not be pretty. Now, look at the water situation. Out here, water is literally life. I need 2 or 3 liters just to drink. Factor in cooking and hygiene, and we are talking tens of liters per person. Farming here? That demand skyrockets. Irrigation needs depend on the crop, but the numbers are always massive. Even high-tech hydroponics need the wet stuff. Back on Earth, you take water for granted. It falls from the clouds. It flows in rivers. Nature just keeps recycling it for you. Rain and evaporation keep the cycle moving. But up here, Mars has no cycle at all. Water is here, trapped in the polar caps or hidden deep under the frozen dirt in the high latitudes. The poles are a mess of water ice and dry ice. To get a drink, we have to travel to the edge of the world. It is brutally cold there. We would have to mine the ice, separate the toxins, and haul it all back home. And you do not want to live at the poles. The temperatures there make the equator look like a paradise. Or we could dig into the dirt. North or south of 30 degrees, there is likely ice buried in the ground. I would have to dig it up, blast it with heat to release the steam, then catch and purify every drop. It takes massive amounts of power. And I have to do it every day, because it never rains here. Every single drop costs us energy. That makes recycling our only hope for survival. We catch every drop, filter it, clean it, and drink it again. Shower water, sink runoff, even toilet waste gets processed. We do this on the station already with our own sweat. We get 93% back. The rest just vanishes into the air or gets trapped in the sludge. Mars needs even better tech. That 7% loss? For 100 people using 50 liters each, that is 5,000 liters daily. Losing 7% means I have to find 350 liters every single day. That is 127,000 liters a year we have to rip out of the frozen ground. 127 metric tons. Imagine the mining and the power needed just for that. And that is just for a small crew. Throw in a farm and the numbers explode. Now, let's talk about food. We need around 2,500 calories a day. But out here, working in this suit, I need much more. My friends on the station eat up to 3,500 calories. For a crew of 100, that is a massive daily haul. 110 million calories a year. We cannot rely on supply ships from Earth forever. Launch costs are insane, and space is tight. Even a starship only hauls 100 metric tons. Sounds like plenty, until you realize my freeze-dried meals only pack 500 calories per 100 grams. To feed 100 people for a year, I need 24 metric tons of food every single year. One starship could feed 100 of us for 4 years, but only if we packed nothing but food. But we need gear, spare parts, building materials, science tools, and medicine just to survive out here. Food can't take up every inch. Realistically, our first missions will only have a year or two of supplies. After that, we're on our own. Farming on Mars is possible, theoretically, if we build pressurized greenhouses down there. We could haul Earth soil up here, or scrub the toxic Mars dust until it's safe for growing plants. We would need lamps or direct sunlight for the crops. But the hurdles are massive. Let's start with the light. Out here, Mars only gets 43% of Earth's sunlight because we're so much farther away. It works for some plants, but it's not enough. We definitely need extra lights, which means more power. LED grow lights help, but they are incredibly power hungry. Growing enough food for 100 people takes massive space. I have crunched the numbers. We would need 50 to 100 square meters of growing space for every single person. Depending on the crops we choose, for 100 people, that is 10,000 square meters of farmland. We're talking about 2 acres of glass. That's one giant greenhouse, or a whole city of smaller ones. Every dome has to hold Earth-like pressure, which is roughly 100 times higher than the Martian air. Imagine the stress on those walls. The inside air is fighting to burst out into the freezing vacuum. It's like a balloon waiting to pop. Building huge, transparent structures that can hold that pressure is terrifyingly hard. Those windows must be unbreakable, airtight, and able to handle the brutal cold and radiation on the surface. They need to let light in, so we can't bury them under dirt like our sleeping quarters. This leaves our greenhouses exposed to high radiation. Plants are tough, but they certainly aren't immune to these hazards. Radiation shreds plant DNA and stunts their growth. We would have to swap our crops out way more often. Or we just settle for smaller harvests than back home. But the plants aren't our only problem. Somebody has to tend the fields. Every hour we spend inside those greenhouses means taking another heavy dose of radiation. We could go underground to stay safe, but then we'd need an insane amount of power for lights. We would be faking 100% of the sunlight. No matter how we do it, the cost is massive. Let's talk about energy. It's the foundation for everything we do here. Heating our homes, recycling air and water. Farming, talking to Earth, building, fixing things. Everything we do out here depends on having enough juice. Back on Earth, energy is everywhere. Fossil fuels might be messy, but they're packed with power and easy to use. You have wind, solar, and rivers. Nuclear provides a steady, massive flow of power whenever you need it. Here, our options are slim. There is no coal or oil because nothing ever lived or died here to create them. Wind is a joke here. The air is so thin that even a gale-force gust carries almost zero energy. With only 1% of Earth's atmosphere, a 100-mile-per-hour storm on Mars feels like a tiny breeze. It won't even turn a turbine. And hydroelectric? Forget it. There isn't a single river on this whole planet. So, it's solar or nuclear. Using the sun sounds great, but trust me, it is a constant struggle. Like I said, the light is weak. Our panels only produce 43% of what they would on Earth. Plus, the dust is everywhere. It cakes the panels, and these global storms can choke the sky for months. When a storm hits, the sky goes black. We lost the Opportunity rover because it just could not see the sun. Its batteries died in the dark. For us, betting our lives purely on solar power is a terrifying gamble. We'd need mountains of batteries to survive a month of darkness. And hauling that weight from Earth is impossible. Nuclear is our best bet. A reactor gives us steady power every single hour, no matter what the weather does. But moving it here is a nightmare. It is heavy, dangerous to set up, and we still handle waste. Still, if we're serious about staying, we need nuclear. The estimates for what we actually need are staggering. A crew of 100 needs at least 1 megawatt of constant power just to keep the lights on. That is 1,000 kilowatts. For comparison, a typical house in the United States uses only about 1 kilowatt. So, Our tiny outpost needs as much electricity as 1,000 Earth houses running non-stop. A megawatt is doable. A small modular reactor could work, but installing it is a massive life-or-death project. Dragging that gear here is hard enough, but we haven't even touched the real killer yet: gravity. Up here, Mars only gives us 37% of what we are used to on Earth. If you were 150 pounds back home, you would be a mere 56 here. It sounds like a playground, right? Like living on a trampoline, but our bodies spent millions of years evolving for Earth's pull, not this. Every muscle, bone, and heartbeat, even the balance in our ears, is precisely tuned to 1G. We are built for home. From our years on the space station, we have learned the hard way. Living in zero gravity is not a dream, it is a medical nightmare. My bones lose density every single month, 1 to 2% just gone. We call it spaceflight osteoporosis, and it is terrifying. Without gravity to fight, our muscles just waste away. On these long hauls, we can lose 20% of our total muscle mass. The heart gets lazy too. It does not have to pump against the weight of the world anymore, so it slowly starts to decondition. When my crew returns home, we often cannot even stand without fainting. Our hearts just cannot handle the crushing weight of 1G anymore. In 0G, fluids rush to our heads, faces swell, we are constantly congested, and the pressure starts crushing our optic nerves. It leaves us with vision problems that might never go away. And honestly, we have no clue how Mars's partial gravity affects us. Mars sits at 0.38G, a total mystery. You and I know Earth's 1G perfectly, that's where we belong. We have mastered 0G on the stations, and we have a few scraps of data from the Moon's 1/6 gravity. But Mars? The Apollo guys only stayed a few days. When it comes to long-term Mars gravity, we are flying blind. Do our bodies still fall apart at 0.38G, just more slowly? That is the question haunting our missions. Is there a breaking point where our systems just fail? Is Mars below that line? We simply do not know yet. Maybe Mars gravity is enough to keep us healthy. Or maybe it is a slow death sentence. Both are entirely possible. Our pioneers would still feel their bones thinning and hearts weakening just a bit slower than we do up here in the void. Spend 6 months drifting in 0G just to get there, and you will step onto the red sand with fragile bone. Follow that with years in Mars gravity, and you will waste away further. Could you ever go back? Would your body even remember Earth? Coming home would feel like Earth suddenly tripled its weight. Every step would be a crushing, heavy battle for survival. Your brittle bones might snap under the pressure. Imagine fracturing your legs just by trying to stand up for the first time. Your heart, lazy after years of easy work, would struggle to pump against real gravity. For now, this is all just grim theory. It is a chilling thought. We might adapt so well to Mars that Earth becomes a forbidden planet we can never visit again. Trapped on Mars for life, not by choice, but because our bodies betrayed us. And what about the kids born out there? A real colony means raising families. But how does a baby grow inside a womb with only 0.38G? What happens to a child in low gravity? Our skeletons need the constant stress of Earth's pull to grow strong and healthy. A Martian child will never feel that weight. Will their bones ever harden? Or will they live with fragile frames their whole lives? We are guessing. It is possible these children will have skeletons so delicate they could never survive a single day on Earth. They might grow tall, towering over us, because their spines never compressed, but they will be as fragile as glass. Their muscles will be thin, never having fought a real day's weight. Their hearts, small, weak, and unproven. If a Martian-born child ever stepped onto Earth, they might collapse, unable to even stand up without a mechanical suit. This is based on what we know of stress and bone growth, but it is a gamble we will not solve until we arrive. Let's ask ourselves, is it ethical to have kids out there, knowing they might be biologically imprisoned on a world that isn't Earth? We have to find these answers, and they will not be easy. But beyond the body, let's talk about the mind's breaking point. Life on Mars is a mental prison. You are trapped in tiny pods, and every step outside is a life or death gamble. The planet itself wants you dead. Radiation, the freezing vacuum, and toxic dust, it is all waiting for one tiny mistake. We are millions of miles away. A simple hello takes 24 minutes to reach home and another 24 to come back. There is no rescue. If things go sideways, you either fix it yourself or you accept that this is the end. Resupply ships only show up once every 2 years. If you run out of air or food, Earth is too far away. The mental strain is soul-crushing. We have seen it in Antarctica, our only real testing ground for this kind of isolation. Down there, researchers face deep depression and total mental breakdowns, and they are still on the same planet as their families. Those people can always leave. They can call home instantly. If things get bad, a helicopter is coming for them. On Mars, you are stuck for years. You cannot just leave, and you will never hear a loved one's voice in real time again. When a medical crisis hits, you are limited to what is in the room. There is no hospital coming to save you. If you need surgery and the doctor is gone or meds are 2 years away, you just pray you are strong enough to survive. Out here, the isolation and stress eat at us. Conflicts among us colonists are inevitable. Small groups in tight spaces always fracture eventually. Back home, you can just walk away from someone. Up here on Mars, we are permanently trapped together in a metal box. You and I need to realize there is no exit, nowhere to run. The psychological survival of our colony is a dark mystery. Will my fellow travelers lose hope after years of confinement and danger? I wonder if mental health crises will become our new normal. How do we treat a psychotic break out here? Psychiatric help is limited, and evacuation isn't an option. These concerns are very real. These are the nightmares we would absolutely have to deal with. And then there is the terrifying puzzle of the return trip. Getting us to Mars was doable with our tech, but getting us back? That is much harder than anyone tells you. Our ships can use the Martian atmosphere for aerobraking, grazing the thin air to slow down. It saves fuel, but it feels risky. The air is so thin, it barely helps. To leave this red desert and see home again, we need to launch from the surface. That requires a massive rocket. Building and fueling a ship on Mars is a nightmare. We would have to bring parts from Earth. We would also have to brew our own rocket fuel. The plan is to use Martian carbon dioxide and frozen ice to create methane. We would need liquid oxygen too. They call this in situ resource utilization. It works on paper, but it requires massive equipment and energy. We have to dig up water and electrolyze it into hydrogen and oxygen, then react that hydrogen with the atmosphere to create methane fuel. We have to liquefy it all and store it safely. Everything depends on power, reliable machines, and a lot of borrowed time. If one pipe bursts, we are stuck here forever. Even with fuel, the voyage home takes another 6 to 9 months through the void. It is the same long haul. We will be floating in zero gravity again, watching our bones and muscles waste away in microgravity. By the time we see Earth, we will have lived in low gravity for years. Readapting to 1G might be a shock. For our older crew or those who stayed too long, it might be impossible. Our bodies might have degraded too much to survive. So the journey home is never guaranteed. For some people, it might not be survivable. Now, let's talk about the economic reality. Colonizing Mars would be staggeringly expensive. You and I know estimates vary, but a self-sustaining colony would likely cost hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars. The initial missions would cost tens of billions each. Building our ships, landers, and power grids will cost billions of dollars for every step. Each launch costs hundreds of millions at least. Even with reusable rockets like Starship, we would need hundreds of launches to survive. We would need dozens of cargo missions for supplies, followed by cruise ships carrying more of us every 2 years like clockwork. The bill grows fast with zero profit. There is nothing on Mars valuable enough to justify the cost of sending it home to Earth. No Martian product could ever cover the shipping costs. Bringing gold from here would cost far more than the gold is actually worth. People say our scientific research is valuable, and they are right. But research does not generate profit for a new world. Governments fund us for knowledge, not money. Our colony would be a permanent money sink, always draining resources from everyone back home. We would need continuous funding from Earth to survive. The second that money stops flowing, our entire colony is in very deep trouble. This is different from history. When ships sailed to the Americas, those colonies could eventually feed themselves and trade for a profit. They had land and resources. They could stand on their own and eventually become profitable through trade across the vast ocean. We cannot become independent because we have nothing to sell. No Martian product would ever pay for the supplies we need from Earth. So we are permanently tied to our funders, whether it is a government, a giant corporation, or a wealthy billionaire with deep pockets. If they lose interest or face a financial crisis, we are in existential danger. Our lives depend on their bank accounts staying full. You can't just walk away from us. If they stop paying, we are all just stranded in the dark without any hope. Maintaining our colony for centuries with no financial return requires a level of sustained commitment I find hard to even imagine. Governments change. Corporations care about profits. Even billionaires die. What happens when they decide to stop? What happens when the money simply dries up? This is one of the most haunting realities we face out here in the blackness. We are not self-sustaining, and maybe we never will be. We are always vulnerable to political shifts or an economic crash. If Earth turns its back, we face a slow crisis as our air runs thin and our life support systems finally fail. You and I often hear that these are just engineering problems we can solve, that we just need better tech to conquer Mars. Sure, we can build better shields and life support. We can design tougher habitats. But some problems are not just about clever machines. There are fundamental physical constraints that no engineer can fix. We are fighting the universe itself, and the universe does not care. No machine can change the fact that Mars' gravity is 0.38 g. No shield can fix that this planet has no magnetic field to protect us. I've seen the red planet through a viewport, and believe me, thickening that atmosphere without thousands of years and impossible tech? Not happening. Some parts of living out here hit hard limits. No matter how good our engineering gets, you can't fix physics. Biology and physics set the rules up here. Some say we need a backup for humanity, just in case Earth fails. An asteroid hit, nuclear war, or some dark pandemic. Any number of nightmare scenarios could wipe life out back home. A colony on Mars sounds like a safe bet for survival, but looking at it from orbit, that logic starts to crumble. First off, even at its worst, Earth is still more habitable than that frozen red desert. A radioactive, post-war Earth would still have air to breathe and warmth. Compare that to the killing cold and vacuum of Mars. Think about a climate disaster. Even a burning Earth is far more livable than the silent, airless plains of the fourth planet. Even after a dinosaur-killer asteroid, Earth would eventually heal. It would still have more resources than I see out there. Calling Mars a backup plan is a stretch. Plus, any colony would be tethered to Earth for hundreds of years. They'd rely on home for everything: spare parts, food, new DNA, and even the basic knowledge to survive. If Earth's industry collapses, the supply line breaks. And without those ships, a Mars colony would simply starve in the dark. Mars isn't a backup until it's totally independent, which leads right back to the massive hurdles we're facing. Third, the wealth it takes to build a city on Mars could just as easily be used to protect our home world. We could build asteroid shields, cut down nuclear threats, and actually fix the climate or stop the next pandemic. Those things make us safer for a fraction of the cost. If we want to survive, maybe we shouldn't be running away. People tell me that exploring is in our blood, that it's just what humans do. We'll reach other worlds eventually. I get it. We are curious, ambitious, and always looking toward the next horizon. We've mapped the oceans, stood at the poles, and climbed the tallest peaks. We've left footprints everywhere on Earth. We stepped on the moon. We'll land on Mars soon for science, but visiting a place isn't the same as staying forever. You and I can study Mars without living there permanently. Think of it like the research stations in Antarctica. Staying forever is a different beast. Just because we have the power to do it doesn't mean it's the right move. We haven't colonized the deep ocean for the same reason. The struggle just isn't worth the reward. Mars is a scientific goldmine, I'll admit, but as a permanent home, it's just not practical. Now, consider the timeline. Even if we solve the tech problems, how long until a real colony actually exists? Optimists like Elon Musk hope for the first crewed landings by the late 20s or early 30s. Let's say it happens and we touch down by 2030. That's only the start of the journey. They'll stay for a few months and then head back home. Building a real presence takes dozens of flights and decades of work. We're limited by the stars. Every mission has to wait for that 2-year window when the planets finally align. Realistically, we might build up to a tiny outpost with 20 people by the early 40s. Reaching 100 people, which is the minimum for genetic health, probably won't happen until the 2050s or 60s. And that's if everything goes perfectly. No crashes, no budget cuts, and constant breakthroughs in technology. Add in the inevitable delays and money problems, and those dates could slip back by many decades. We might not see a 100-person colony until the next century. Even then, they'd still be begging Earth for help. Total independence where they can survive without a single ship from home could take another 100 years of struggle. We are talking about a project that spans multiple human lifetimes. Generations would have to stay committed to the funding and the labor. It's a massive ask. Think about the trade-offs. That money could fund fusion power or cure diseases that have haunted us for centuries. We could end poverty, fix the climate, protect our oceans, and push the limits of AI and biotech. Those things have real, immediate benefits for everyone. I'm not saying Mars has no value, though. It brings us knowledge, new tech, and inspires the kids who'll follow in my footsteps. Those are real wins, but we have to weigh them against the staggering cost of the mission. When you and I do that calculation honestly, it's not clear that Mars is our best move right now. There's one more thing we haven't touched on the trip itself. It's not like a quick hop across the sea. It's a 9-month journey through the deep void, where you're trapped inside a pressurized tin can hurtling through the cold silence. The psychological weight of this lonely trek is absolutely staggering. Imagine being trapped in a tin can with the same faces for months, no stepping out for air, no real-time calls home because the signal delay kills any hope of a normal chat. I am always painfully aware that only a thin sheet of metal separates us from the freezing void of space. Every second, we drift further from home, piercing into a darkness where no human has ever ventured. Out here, our ship has to be entirely self-reliant. There is no calling for backup. My life support systems must run flawlessly for months. A single glitch is a death sentence. Recycled water, recycled air, and climate control, it all has to work without a single hiccup. We carry every spare bolt ourselves because there is no celestial hardware store. We are packed with every calorie we need, 6 to 9 months of nothing but freeze-dried food pouches. It is the same bland menu, day in and day out. No fresh greens, just vacuum-sealed mush. That kind of repetitive grind messes with your head more than the silence does. Then we have the invisible killer radiation. Once we left Earth's magnetic shield, we became targets for every stray particle in the deep solar system. Cosmic rays pepper the hull constantly. A solar flare could blast us with lethal radiation in just a few short hours. We need armor, but shielding is heavy. Every extra kilogram we add means burning way more fuel just to shove this ship toward Mars. It is a brutal trade-off between safety and physics. We have some protection, but it will never match the safety of standing on solid ground back home. My crew and I are soaking up massive amounts of radiation now, and that is before we even set foot on the Martian surface. By the time we arrive, months of exposure will have already spiked our long-term cancer risks. We are paying for this trip with our health. Then there is the physical rot. In zero gravity, my muscles and bones stop working since there is no weight to fight against. Without help, they wither away fast. On the space station, we have to grind for 2 hours every day just to keep our skeletons from turning to glass. Even with all that sweat, we still feel our strength and bone density slowly slipping away. A Mars trip requires that same brutal routine, but our ship is cramped and our gear is limited. We have to make do. There is no gym here, just some resistance bands, a strapped-down treadmill, and a few weights. You have to use them religiously every single day for months on end. Skipping a session means landing on Mars too weak to actually do the job of exploring or building our new home. But nothing beats the isolation. On the space station, you can at least look out and see our big blue home. Earth is right there, a stunning marble in the dark. You feel close to home. But on this journey, after a few weeks, home becomes just another tiny speck of light. Clouds and continents vanish. Everything I have ever known is just a tiny, distant dot. And Mars? That is just another dot ahead of us. We are swallowed by darkness and stars, millions of miles from anything real. How that isolation hits your brain is anyone's guess. Some might handle it. Others could spiral into depression, anxiety, or just lose their grip on what is real. If one of us has a total mental breakdown out here, there is really not much we can do about it. You cannot just turn around. The path is locked. Like it or not, we are going to Mars. We went through intense screening, and we get delayed support from doctors back on Earth. But in the end, we only have each other to lean on out here. Our chemistry is everything. If we support each other and stay in sync, this nightmare might actually be bearable for us. But if we start clashing or fighting for power, this whole mission becomes a living hell. Once those hatches close, there is no escape. We are crammed into this small space together for many months to come. Every tiny quirk or annoying habit gets magnified 1,000 times. History from submarines and polar treks shows that even the most professional crews eventually snap over small things. People get on each other's nerves, and sometimes things get really ugly. Managing our tempers is survival. We were trained in conflict resolution, but staying calm in a tiny box is a different story. We need clear rules and a chain of command to make decisions. We must be professional enough to put the mission first, even when we hate each other. Now, let us look at what happens when we finally reach Mars. The landing itself is easily the most terrifying part of this entire journey. The Martian air is thick enough to burn us up on entry, so we need a massive heat shield, yet it is too thin to actually slow us down like Earth's air would. We are screaming along at thousands of miles per hour. To survive, we have to bleed that speed using drag, chutes, and retro rockets in perfect sequence. They call this window the 7 minutes of terror for a reason. It is the stretch between hitting the atmosphere and touching the red dirt. In those 7 minutes, every single component has to work perfectly. The heat shield must survive thousands of degrees of fire. The chutes have to pop at the exact right altitude, or we are toast. The retro rockets have to fire just right, and those landing legs need to take the hit. One slip-up means we slam into the surface at high speed. Worse yet, there is a massive communication delay between here and Earth during the whole descent. Mission Control cannot help us. They will not even know if we survived until long after it is over. My ship is flying itself now, locked into its descent code. Landing a robot on Mars is one thing, but landing us? That is a whole different beast. We are coming in much heavier, carrying massive fuel tanks and oversized parachutes. Our margin for error has basically vanished. If a rover crashes, the agency loses money and data. But for us, here in the cockpit, the stakes are everything. A crash means we never go home. The psychological pressure during this entry sequence is enough to crush your soul. We are just passengers in this tin can while the computers take over. You just sit there, strapped in, praying the code holds. If it works, we step onto Mars. If it fails, we have seconds to realize it and absolutely zero way to fix it. Even if we stick the landing, the nightmare is just starting. Limited supplies and a lethal environment, we are officially on our own. Our first priority is power and life support. We have to get those solar panels out or fire up the nuclear reactor immediately. We will be wrestling habitat modules into place and pressurizing them, all while trapped inside our bulky, stiff, pressurized suits. Until that habitat is sealed, we are living in these suits. It is exhausting work. The gear is heavy and incredibly restrictive. Every limb movement is a fight against the suit's internal pressure. My hands will be cramping because the gloves are like rocks. I will be sweating through the cooling system, constantly terrified that one sharp rock could rip my suit and kill me instantly. A 5-minute fix on Earth takes us hours here. Even the Apollo guys on the moon said it was a brutal physical grind. They were exhausted on the moon, and Mars has much stronger gravity. Everything here feels heavier, harder, and much more dangerous. That extra weight means we burn through oxygen faster. Our first few weeks here will be a desperate race against the clock. We have to get the air flowing, check the seals, and pray we can reach Earth on the long-range communications array. Then we start hunting for resources in the red dust. We have to find what we need before our tanks run dry. We only brought enough food, water, and air for a few months at most. The clock is always ticking for us. In that time, we must force this dead atmosphere to give us oxygen and squeeze every drop of water from the soil. If these systems fail, we are dead. There is no overnight delivery from Earth. We have to be ready to improvise. Let's look at the crew. You and I need people who are masters of engineering, medicine, and geology just to survive. Everyone has to be a polymath. Our team is too small for specialists. If you cannot do 5 jobs, you are dead weight. If my biologist goes down, and she is the only one who can run the greenhouse, we all starve. Simple as that. Cross-training is our only insurance policy, but it means we spent years in simulators before we ever left Earth's orbit. We learned every backup role. But let's talk about the real problem, manufacturing, and fixing what breaks on the surface. Back home, you just buy a new part. Out here, a resupply ship could be 2 years away. You cannot wait that long. If something critical snaps, and we do not have a spare, we have to manufacture it. That is where 3D printing saves us. A real colony needs high-end 3D printers capable of churning out everything from plastic seals to heavy metal components. A broken bracket? Design it and print it. Need a custom tool? Hit print. It is our only hope for self-sufficiency. But printing has limits. We cannot just print out a new computer chip or complex circuitry when the dust gets in. We cannot print a fresh battery or a solar cell. Those are the lifelines we have to bring from home and guard. If we run out of spares, the mission ends. This is why a real colony needs a massive industrial footprint to survive. With 100 people, we might have the hands and the brains to set up actual workshops and basic manufacturing plants. But with only 10 of us, we are just duct taping our way through the day, hoping nothing vital gives out. Scaling up to a point where we do not need Earth will take decades of grueling, dangerous work on the surface. We would need heavy mining gear just to pull iron from the ground. It is a massive logistical nightmare for us. We would need smelters, machine shops, and chemical plants just to make simple things like glass and plastic out of dust. And energy? We would need a staggering amount. A real industrial base would require far more than 1 megawatt of power. We are talking tens of megawatts, an army of nuclear reactors or solar arrays covering the horizon as far as we can see. We have to build this brick by brick over a lifetime. For now, we are tethered to Earth like infants on life support. Maybe in a century, we will be independent. But for us, true freedom from Earth is a dream for our grandchildren. You and I are looking at 50 or 100 years before this place stands on its own. Now, consider the medical risks. A medical emergency out here is my worst nightmare. Back home, a heart attack means an ambulance is minutes away. Within an hour, you are in a sterile hospital with surgeons and high-tech tests. Help is always there for you. On Mars, if your heart stops, you have me, a basic medical kit, and whatever luck you brought with you. Best case scenario? One of us is a trained surgeon. Even then, our medical facilities would be incredibly sparse. We would have a tiny medical bay with basic bandages, some antibiotics, pain medication, and simple diagnostic tools. That means an ultrasound or a portable X-ray, but nothing close to a real hospital setup. There are no MRI machines, no vast pharmacies, no blood banks, and zero organ transplant capability. If I need surgery, it happens in that cramped bay, performed by whoever has the most medical training. Need a transfusion? You better hope a crewmate has a matching blood type and is willing to donate. If we run out of a specific medicine, we improvise or suffer. For routine issues, we could probably manage. We can handle broken bones, minor infections, or nasty cuts with our basic supplies and a little knowledge. But serious emergencies, heart attacks, strokes, or major trauma would be immediate, life-threatening crises for us. These things are dangerous in ways you cannot imagine on Earth. Take appendicitis, for example. On Earth, it is routine. A surgeon removes it, and you recover in weeks. The death rate is under 1%. On Mars, if your appendix ruptures, you need surgery fast, or you are gone within a few days. If our crew includes a trained surgeon who can perform the operation, we might actually be okay. But without a surgeon, someone with less experience has to try. That is when the risk truly skyrockets. Or we try antibiotics and pray it clears up without a knife. It works sometimes, but it is a gamble. We also worry about skills fading. A doctor trained on Earth who hasn't operated in years might forget everything. Medical knowledge needs constant practice. But in our small colony, these emergencies are fortunately rare. Our doctor might go years without seeing a crisis. When a real emergency hits, their skills might be rusty. They would be working from memory and old digital manuals, hoping they remember every single step correctly. Isolation is a real threat. Antarctic research stations handle this by rotating their medical staff every single year. They get live support from specialists back home. On Mars, we have to deal with the communication delay. A doctor on Earth could watch our video, but their advice would arrive 4 to 24 minutes late. That works for a checkup, but not for real-time surgery. If things go wrong, we are truly alone. Then there is the issue of the drugs themselves. Every bottle has an expiration date and loses potency. In our colony, medications age. The antibiotics we brought might fail, and the pain meds might just stop working. Manufacturing new drugs here is incredibly difficult. Most modern medicine requires complex chemistry and high-tech labs. You need specialized equipment and pure chemicals. A small colony like ours just doesn't have that capability yet. We are tethered to Earth for every pill. Without regular resupply missions, our medical safety net slowly rots. Then there are the emergencies during the transit itself. What if someone has a heart attack mid-flight? During that 9-month journey, there is no turning back. Earth is millions of miles behind us. We are trapped in a spacecraft with limited gear. Our medic would try, but the outcome is terrifyingly uncertain. Even if the patient survives the initial event, they will arrive on Mars with a permanent heart condition. Can they still do the heavy lifting to build our base? If not, they are now a burden. That puts a massive strain on everyone else. It is a harsh reality that mission planners have to face. This is why selection is so brutal. Only the healthiest people on Earth are even considered for this trip. Even then, accidents happen to the best of us. Let's talk about what happens if we lose someone. If a crewmate passes away, what do we do with the body? On Earth, you have burials or cremations. Here, neither is easy. Burial is a nightmare because the Martian ground is frozen solid and hard to dig. We also have to ask if burying a human in Martian soil is even allowed for planetary protection. We cannot contaminate Mars with Earth bacteria. Cremation is an option, but it wastes fuel and creates smoke. On a resource-limited colony, burning fuel for a body seems wasteful. We would have to vent the smoke. Some suggest that in the future, we could process the dead for materials. We could reclaim their water. We could even compost the remains for agriculture. It is brutally pragmatic, but out here, waste is a luxury. Whether we could ever accept this psychologically is the real question. Our cultural ties to the dead are deep. Asking us to see our dead friends as just recyclable resources? That might be the hardest part of all. Up here, I'm realizing that staying alive might mean some cold, hard choices. These are the ethics we're forced to face on this red rock. Let me tell you about the silence. Communicating with Earth isn't simple because the distance between our worlds is always shifting. When we're at our closest about 34 million miles or 55 million kilometers away, it takes 3 long minutes for my voice to even reach them. That is a 6-minute round trip just to hear a simple hello back. When the sun sits between us, that gap grows to 250 million miles or 400 million kilometers. A message takes 22 minutes one way. And when the sun blocks us entirely? Total silence. No signals, no voices. From my perspective, Earth has simply ceased to exist. These periods of solar conjunction happen every 2 years and last for weeks. During that time, we are completely cut off from our home. This delay makes real-time conversation impossible. I can't just call home. I send a message, then sit in the silence for 44 minutes, waiting. By the time they reply, the moment has passed. It's like shouting into a canyon and waiting an hour. It's incredibly isolating for the mind. We humans aren't built for this. We're evolved for real-time rhythm facial expressions, body language, and the instant back and forth of a real conversation. It's how we're deeply wired to interact. But standing here on Mars, I can't have that with anyone I left behind on Earth. I can send videos or photos, but it's just recorded data. It's not the same as actually being heard by someone in the moment. This distance will break relationships. Maintaining a romance with someone back on Earth would be nearly impossible over the long years. The lag kills intimacy. I can't comfort my partner if they're upset. By the time my voice reaches them, their tears are already dry. My support arrives long after they've dealt with the crisis. Friendships suffer the same fate, slowly withering away across the millions of miles. I'm bonding with my crew because we're surviving this together. But my connections to people on Earth, they are fading into the stars. It's not that I don't care about them. It's just that the delay makes holding on to those lives nearly impossible. Eventually, Earth starts to feel like a distant, abstract dream. A place I came from, but it's not really my home anymore. Maybe this separation helps me adapt to living here. But it's also terrifying to feel so disconnected from the rest of humanity as a whole. To the people back there, I'm becoming a remote stranger. They're watching me live through experiences that no one on Earth could ever truly understand. I'm facing challenges and dangers every day that are completely outside of the normal human experience. The cultural gap is growing. We're starting to have our own jokes, our own slang, and a way of thinking that belongs only to us. I'm starting to feel like a Martian rather than an Earthling. This is the birth of a completely separate identity out here. It's fascinating from a distance, sure, but it's also a recipe for major conflict or misunderstanding between our worlds. We have different priorities and values now. So, who actually has the authority to make the rules for us out here? Who's the boss of me? Is it NASA back in Houston? Or some consortium of international agencies I've never even met? Does a private company like SpaceX own this ground? The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 says no nation can claim sovereignty over celestial bodies. Mars doesn't belong to anyone. But the laws also say that countries are still responsible for what their people do in space. Since I'm an American astronaut, the US government believes they still have authority over my life on this planet. But what does that actually mean in practice? Can they force their laws on us when our crew is made of people from multiple countries? Whose laws apply? If a private corporation established this base, do they have the power to set the rules for everyone living here? Right now, there are simply no clear answers. They'll need new international treaties, but governing us from Earth is impossible because of this massive communication lag. If an emergency hits, I can't wait hours for Earth to tell me what to do. In a real life or death crisis, that's not workable. We have to make our own decisions. Mars needs its own local way of deciding how we are going to survive, right here. Maybe we'll have a council or a vote. Either way, whoever makes the calls is doing it with almost no oversight from back home. That communication lag gives us a strange, de facto autonomy. One day, it could lead to Mars becoming completely politically independent from the world we left. If Earth sends orders we don't like, we'll just ignore them. What are they going to do? Send a police force to Mars? That's not practical. We've got a degree of freedom out here that could lead to some very strange political developments. We might build a whole new society with new structures, or we might just repeat the same mistakes they made back on Earth. It depends on who we are. But there's a darker side to us being here that we have to talk about. There's the issue of planetary protection. What if Mars already has its own microbial life hiding somewhere we haven't looked yet? Just because I haven't found it doesn't mean it's not here. I know there's water and organic compounds locked deep in this soil. This planet once had a thick atmosphere and liquid water. If life ever started here, it might still be thriving in sheltered underground environments. By being here, I'm inevitably contaminating this world with Earth's bacteria, coming from my own body, my equipment, and my waste. Up here, I know we can scrub the hull, but we can't kill every microbe. I'm a walking ecosystem myself. Trillions of bacteria live on my skin and in my gut. When I head to Mars, my microscopic crew comes along. If Mars has its own life, my Earth microbes might crush it or mix with it in ways I can't imagine. I could destroy exactly what I'm looking for. It's a heavy thought. Some say we should send robots before me. They want to find life before I arrive. Once my boots hit the dust, that world is changed forever. Still, some say my hands and eyes are needed for real science. It's a delicate balance out here, looking at the stars. I wonder, do we even have the right to call another world home? Down there, Mars is its own world, carved by billions of years of quiet history. Do I have the right to reshape it into a second Earth? Or should I leave it untouched? Many say I should leave Mars alone. Looking back at Earth, I see why they don't trust us with a new world. To others, it's just a dead rock for us to use. There's no easy answer, only hard choices. And what about the riches? If I find gold or minerals, who gets the profit? Who actually owns Mars? The treaties say space belongs to everyone. But back home, I know corporations will fight over every ounce I dig up. We could be starting a new age of colonialism, where only the rich nations reap the rewards of the stars. I worry we're just repeating history's mistakes, with the powerful taking everything and leaving nothing for the rest. To fix this, we'd need true global teamwork. Floating here, I wonder if that's even possible. Then there's the question of who joins me. These first missions are incredibly exclusive. Only the fittest and most skilled are picked. For now, this frontier is reserved for a tiny elite. One day, everyone might follow. But for now, it's just us, the pilots, the scientists, and the engineers. It feels wrong that this dream is only for a few. It's a human dream, but I'm one of the only ones living it. It matters. It asks a deep question. Who gets to decide our future among the stars? Is space for everyone, or just the lucky ones? We'll have to face that as we move further out. Now, stick with me, because there's a danger we haven't fully faced yet. The dust storms. Mars is famous for them, and they're unlike anything back home. Sahara storms are nothing compared to this. On Earth, they're over in days. They're bad for your lungs, sure, but they pass. But out here, a storm can swallow the entire planet, and it can stay that way for months. Back in 2018, one of these global storms choked the planet for several months. The sky went black. Opportunity, our 15-year veteran, finally lost its breath because the sun just vanished. We waited for a signal once the dust settled, but Opportunity never spoke to us again. Its clock likely died in the dark. It couldn't even find the sun once the skies finally cleared. Maybe the dust was just too heavy, or the freezing cold simply snapped its heart while the power was out. Either way, she was gone. For me and my crew, a storm like that is a death sentence. If we're using solar, our power just flatlines. The whole world turns a sickly, suffocating orange. The light vanishes. My panels might only give me 10 or 20% of the power I need to survive. I'd need massive batteries or a nuclear heart. Without power, my life support starts to flicker and die. The habitat turns ice cold. The air gets thick with carbon dioxide. Everything I need to breathe and drink just stops. Every system I rely on needs juice. A months-long storm would push us right to the edge. Even with nuclear backup, we'd be rationing every watt. I'd have to shut down everything non-essential. No lights for the crops, no power for the labs. We'd only send the most desperate messages home. We'd be huddling in the dark, saving every spark. And then there's the dust. It's finer than powder. These tiny particles are only micrometers wide. When the wind howls, that dust gets into everything. It eats through seals and jams every joint. It's even electrically charged, so it clings to everything like a magnet. You can't just brush it away. It sticks. The Apollo crews dealt with this on the moon, and it was a nightmare. Moon dust is just like this. Those astronauts couldn't keep it out of their lander, no matter how hard they tried. It hitched a ride on their suits and followed them inside. It fouled their seals, their gear, and their very lungs. We felt it first as a scratch in our throats, tiny dust particles we just couldn't escape. On Mars, keeping that grit out of my habitat is a losing battle. Every time I step back through the airlock, I bring the Martian surface inside with me. Over time, the very air we breathe inside becomes fouled. We'd be inhaling low levels of that red powder every single second. You and I have to remember that this soil is laced with toxic perchlorates. Breathing that stuff long-term, it's a slow-motion health disaster. My thyroid would take the first hit, followed by lung scarring and organ damage I might not notice until it's too late. Our air scrubbers would have to scream along at max power, and we'd be burning through filters faster than we could replace them. If those filters run out, the air turns sour. Beyond our lungs, the dust eats the machines, grinding rovers until they simply seize up. Airlock seals would fray and fail. Every hinge would turn into sandpaper. Even our solar glass would be permanently etched by a million tiny scratches. Every single storm is a thief, stealing hours and days from the life of our vital equipment. Down there on Earth, you just order a spare part. Up here, I have to fix it with what's on hand or wait years for a supply ship. The storms don't just kill machines, they blind us. Out there, the horizon disappears into a choking brown haze that swallows the light. Working outside becomes a gamble with your life. If I'm out in the rover and the visibility drops, I'm effectively lost in a void. There is no GPS here. Navigating by blind luck is a death sentence. One wrong turn, and I'm tumbling into a ravine I never saw coming. Then there's the mental toll, something you can't truly prepare for until the hatch finally closes. Imagine staring out my porthole and seeing nothing but orange gloom for months on end. No sky, no sun, just an oppressive, dusty shadow. That unending darkness drains the soul. On Earth, people get seasonal depression in winter. But this is a whole new level of mental exhaustion. Trapped in the dark, we'd all start to crack. Lethargy sets in, sleep patterns break, and mood swings become the new normal. We'd be fighting our own minds while the power dies and the machines fail. It's just layer upon layer of absolute stress. Now, let's explore the biological toll of this place together. My bones and muscles are already wasting away in this low gravity. But our immune systems are the real hidden casualty of space travel. I've seen the data from my colleagues. Our bodies simply stop fighting back as hard once we leave Earth. Evolution didn't plan for this. My defenses were built for Earth's gravity and air. Take those away, and the whole system starts to stutter and fail. Even on the station, I'm more vulnerable to every little bug that manages to hitch a ride up here. Viruses that have slept in my blood for years can suddenly wake up. wounds don't close, and my thymus gland is literally shrinking. We aren't sure if the gravity on Mars is enough to stop this decay. If not, every colonist here is walking around with a broken shield. A minor infection that you'd clear in a week back home could easily become a death sentence for me out here. A simple cut that turns ugly could end everything if my body won't fight. In these tight quarters, if one of us gets sick, we all do. We're all sharing the same recycled air. In a sealed habitat, a contagious virus spreads like wildfire through the crew. One outbreak of the flu could take out the whole team. On Earth, there's always someone else to take the next shift. But on Mars, if half of us are down, who's making sure the oxygen stays on? Who's watching the reactor? Who's feeding the plants? If too many of us drop at once, the whole colony dies. We have to be obsessed with hygiene. Every shot, every vaccine before we launch, we'd have to follow brutal cleaning protocols every single day. Isolating the sick is nearly impossible in a space this small. I can't exactly send my crewmate to another building across the street. Space is a premium. But there's a darker question. What happens if a woman gets pregnant in this low-gravity world? We're flying blind here. We have zero data, but my gut tells me the consequences could be devastating. Growing a human is a delicate dance of cells. On Earth, gravity is the rhythm that tells those cells where to go and what to be. Bones, muscles, the very way a heart pumps, it's all shaped by Earth's pull. In this weak gravity, that entire process could drift into chaos. We're talking about skeletal malformations, hearts that can't beat right, and neurological wiring that just doesn't connect. The risks are terrifyingly real, yet we won't know for sure until the first child is actually conceived on this red rock. That leads us to a massive ethical minefield. Is it right to allow a child to be born into a life of certain health struggles? Do we have the right to choose that for a person who never asked to be here? Or should we forbid it until we have the answers? These questions keep me up at night. Some say having a family is a basic human right that no mission commander should touch. Others argue that it's the height of cruelty to bring a life into this world when the odds are stacked so heavily against them. And if a child is born sick on Mars, how do you and I even begin to treat them? Fixing a newborn's heart takes a team of specialists and a hospital we just don't have. Out here, we are on our own. We don't have those facilities here. A child born with a heart defect on Earth would be doomed on Mars. It is a haunting reality we have to face. You and I need to compare this place to Earth's deadliest spots. People back home argue that if we can survive the Sahara or the deep ocean, we can handle Mars. But that comparison is completely wrong. Antarctica is brutal. Winter temperatures drop to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. It is isolated, frozen, and completely hostile. But Antarctica has air I can breathe. I could walk outside in just warm clothes. If the heat dies, I can burn fuel to survive. If the rations run out, there is at least wildlife to hunt. Seals and penguins are there if things get desperate. And if I get sick, I can at least be evacuated. Planes can reach those stations in days. You might be isolated, but you're still on Earth. Rescue is actually possible. Up here, there are no safety nets. This atmosphere kills in minutes. No animals to hunt, no rescue coming for us. I am alone in a way that is incomparable to anywhere back home. The Sahara is dry and hostile, but it has air and water if you look. There are insects, plants, and reptiles. A resourceful survivor in the desert might last until a rescue team arrives. Out here, if I'm stranded, I have only the air in my suit for a few hours. There is no water nearby, no shade from the sun's deadly radiation. If my suit fails, there is no chance of rescue. People often compare this to the deep ocean. We've sent submersibles down to the darkest trenches on Earth. The pressure is crushing. The darkness is absolute. But the ocean is home. If things break, you can just surface. Rescue subs can come for you. You can be home in hours. Plus, the ocean teems with fish and microbes. My world has none of that. It's sterile, cold, and soaked in radiation. The comparison to Earth just doesn't work. This place is fundamentally different. It's not just more extreme. It is a completely different category of hostile. They say technology will protect us, that our habitats and suits are enough. But as an astronaut, I know technology fails. Seals crack. Systems glitch. Power dies. Back on Earth, when your tech fails, you usually have a fallback. You have natural air and water. Out here, when the tech fails, your life ends. There is zero natural backup. I am dependent on systems working perfectly every single second. It is a vulnerability humans have never known before. Even on the International Space Station, the closest thing I have to a home away from home, those astronauts can evacuate in a capsule and be home in hours. On Mars, I'm stuck for years until the next launch window opens up. If a crisis hits and we need to leave, waiting 2 years for a flight isn't an option. This leads us to the most sobering part of my journey: permanence. Once I landed, I was here for life. If I get homesick or the psychological stress breaks me, it doesn't matter. There's no turning back. I can't leave until the planets align. Even then, my body might be too adapted to Mars gravity to ever survive Earth. This is unlike any other migration in our history. When sailors crossed to the Americas, the journey was dangerous and took many long months. Once they arrived, they could theoretically turn around and sail home. It was hard, but it was possible. On Earth, you can always leave. If you hate your job in Antarctica, you just book a flight home. You can walk away from the Sahara. You can surface from the deep. But here, I'm committed for years. Children born here might never survive Earth's gravity again. They would be Martians for life, not by choice, but because of their own biology. That is a heavy weight to carry. Mars isn't just a physical test. It's an existential challenge for us all. It forces me to ask what being human really means, what I am willing to sacrifice for expansion, and whether these benefits are worth the cost. Now, you and I have to ask, why am I here? Why colonize this red desert at all? We have looked at the terrifying risks and the costs. So what is the upside? What am I hoping to gain? The main argument is scientific knowledge. From my window, Mars is an absolutely fascinating world. Understanding its geology and climate history tells us so much about how planets form and the potential for alien life. If we find proof that Mars once had life, or even something still living, it would be the most significant discovery in our human history. It would tell us life is not unique to Earth. It can arise anywhere. That would fundamentally change our entire place in the universe. But you don't need a human here for that. Robotic rovers can do most of this science alone. Drones and landers gather data perfectly well. My presence here just allows for slightly more sophisticated research in the field. Sure, I can cover more ground and make faster decisions than a robot. I can adapt to surprises instantly. But is my life worth that advantage? It is debatable. Another point people make is about technological development. Fixing the nightmare of living on Mars would spark a revolution in our systems. It would force breakthroughs in medicine and materials that we desperately need back home. Water recycling for our deserts and better solar panels are just the start. I call this the spin-off effect. Apollo gave us the computers we use today. You and I might find that focusing on Earth is smarter than chasing Mars. If we need clean water, let's fund the labs down there right now. If we want better solar panels, fund that research on Earth today. We would likely see results way faster than waiting for a rocket to launch. Then there is the dream. Mars gives us a vision, a hauntingly beautiful destination. It makes children look up at the stars, just like Apollo did for a whole world. It proved what we can do when we focus. Maybe Mars is our next test. It reminds us that we are capable of magic, but inspiration is a flickering light. Some of us find hope in the void, others in a green forest. Should we prioritize Mars? That is a deep, quiet question of human values. There is no perfect answer. Finally, there is the survival claim that Mars is a backup. From my window out here, I see this is flawed. A colony would be a tethered child. If Earth fails, the silence up there follows. Saving our home planet is almost certainly easier than trying to tame a dead one. So, we are left staring at the unknown. The actual benefits of Mars are hazy. Our robots can do the heavy lifting. We can find the tech spin-offs elsewhere. The survival backup is a myth. This is about who we are as people. The idea is that we must drift beyond our blue marble because it is our nature. We explore. We push into the dark. Mars is the fire in our restless spirits. It is about making sure we are not stuck on one single rock forever. That is a grand thought, but thoughts do not feed the hungry down below. This is where the air gets thin. Our resources and our time are running out. Do we bet everything on a red desert, or fix the home we already have? Hunger, sickness, and a changing climate, those are the shadows haunting billions right now. Can we address Earth problems while you and I also reach for the stars? Money spent on a Martian dome is money taken from a school or hospital. Mars is a choice with a heavy price tag. We have to be real about that. For some, the dream is worth any cost. It is a signal of pure ambition. For others, it is just a rich man's escape while the world below burns. Both sides are right. Maybe we should just take a slower, more careful path. Let the robots lead the way while we learn the secrets of the red dust. When the tech is finally ready, then we can talk about making it a home. But we must not rush. We cannot throw lives into that vacuum prematurely. We take our time and do it right. We give them a fighting chance. That feels like a reasonable middle ground. We should still explore the silence, appreciate it from afar, and move in only when our technology is grown. We must face the ethics of it. This isn't just for some billionaire's ego. You and I must decide the next step and ensure it is done responsibly. The terrifying truth is that the challenges of Mars are more severe than realized. Radiation breeds cancer. This toxic environment would kill you in minutes without protection. It is lethally cold with no air. Weak gravity will slowly waste your body. Psychological isolation that snaps your mind, and economic chains to Earth that you and I can't ignore. Out here, Mars is millions of miles away. That means no resupply and no rescue if things go wrong. These aren't just hurdles. They are fundamental, soul-crushing problems that might not even have a solution. Within the cold limits of physics and biology, it doesn't mean we'll never send people there. We'll go for research or short missions, but the dream of a thriving city out there? That stays a dream. A true second home for humanity? That remains a fantasy with anything resembling the technology we have today. Maybe in a distant century, with tech we can't imagine. Genetic engineering could finally shield us from radiation. We'd need systems adapted to low gravity, artificial gravity. We simply don't know how to build yet. Breakthroughs in science that make construction easy, or AI and robotics that automate the heavy grind. With that kind of tech, maybe it's possible. But right now, it's just speculative science fiction. With the gear we have now, and for the next few decades, colonizing Mars remains extraordinarily difficult. Those who head to Mars, especially early on, will be taking enormous risks. True pioneers in every sense. Every second, that environment is trying to kill you. Many of them will not come back. That's our reality. Not impossible. We've done the impossible, just much, much harder than you think. It's far more dangerous than the movies show. Let's look at the depth of these challenges together. Because if we're going to do this, if we're committing lives and resources to stay out here, we should do it with our eyes open, knowing how hard it is, knowing exactly what people must sacrifice. Even with our best efforts, it might fail. That is the honest truth. A dream beyond our reach. Or at least, it's out of reach for much longer than we'd admit. Maybe that's okay. Maybe Mars is a place to study and appreciate from afar, rather than colonized by humanity. Maybe our efforts are better spent taking care of the one planet that supports us, Earth. It's still the most welcoming place in the universe. Looking back at it from out here, you start to appreciate how rare Earth is. Every breath of air, every sip of water, a gift. Walking outside without a suit, the rain, the wind. Out here, I really miss the seasons. Mars can never give us that naturally. Only artificial systems that could fail at any moment. Mars is a magnificent world. It deserves to be explored and studied, but it isn't Earth. Maybe this dream should make us appreciate Earth more and commit to protecting the one home we have. We should be ensuring she remains habitable, because in the grand scheme, Earth is easier to save. Earth is easier to save than Mars is to colonize. Thanks for staying with me on this journey. These terrifying problems are real. The challenges are immense, and the future uncertain. But understanding is step one. We must make informed decisions about where we go next, whether to Mars or back to our home. A renewed focus on the remarkable planet we already call home.